Ex-prisoners of Reddit, what is the most disturbing thing you have heard or witnessed from a fellow prisoner? NSW. One of the women I was in with was in for life. The reason why she was in was because someone had sold her fake crack, so she was going to kill this person. She goes to their house, cuts the gas line and burns the house down. Turns out, she had the wrong house and had killed an entire family in their sleep. 6 months in Rikers Island, New York. Watched a girl try to drown herself in her cell toilet for 2 hours, just running her head and trying to stay under while the COs stood around and laughed. When they left, she peed on the floor to flood the cell to get their attention again. Not a prison, but my professor works with prisoners. She told us she had this client that is recently out of jail telling her that the most enjoyable thing in prison was the group therapy session. He said, "I really love the group therapy because it gave me ideas of other people's emotions when confessing their crimes. It taught me the emotions I am supposed to feel when confessing in court again to reduce my sentence next time." She was really surprised that a serial killer is that honest. She was really spooked at the same time. I went to jail for about 3 weeks because of driving with a suspended license. We all slept in these huge rooms with bathroom and living area connected. About a week and I hear some guy get up and use the small microwave that we are given in the living area to make stuff hot like ramen. It's not normal for the microwave to be used after lights out, but I figured maybe he had a roll or something he wanted to heat up and munch on before sleeping. The guard posted on the far wall never said anything to him or even got up from his seat, though I could tell from my bunk he was watching the inmate. So the guy comes back to the bed area and walks right past me with this bowl in his hands. I close my eyes and try to go to sleep, but the silence is shattered by this blood-curdling scream from a couple rows down. The guy had filled a bowl with baby oil and heated it till boiling and then poured it on some guy's face in his sleep. Found out later they had some kind of fight a few days earlier and the baby oil guy was out for revenge. Burn guy had 3rd-degree burns on his face, neck, shoulders and chest. Baby oil guy was taken away and we never heard from him again. Also, we lost our microwave, so to heat things up we had to use hot water from the sink and just let stuff sit in it forever to heat it up. It sucked ass to be sure, but not as bad as being covered in boiling fricking oil. Never been to prison, but when worked in there I saw a lot of prisoners come in with all sorts of injuries, but two stand out. The first one was a guy who was shanked in the abdomen and his intestines were literally hanging out. I remember he was stoned face and wasn't saying anything, just looking straight ahead. I'm sure he had been given pain meds, but still. We slid him on the stretcher and I remember I went to move him up in the bed a little bit, and as soon as I started to slide him up he grabbed my arm and said, "Hold up a minute homie. That hurts a little bit," in the most nonchalant voice I've ever heard. The second was a guy who tried to kill himself by stripping naked and just laying on the cold floor for hours. The floor was so cold it ended up dropping his core temperature to around 92 degrees Fahrenheit. A quiet kid we called Harry Potter because of his glasses. He was pretty young and lacking in street smarts, and we could never figure out why he was there, until we caught the news from a guard that he threw a pot of boiling hot water on his wheelchair-bound grandma because she was being too loud while he watched his favorite TV show. Out of all the sick crap people were locked up for, that one is pretty hard to swallow. If you ever get locked up, remember to always be respectful of those around you because you never know what kinds of messed up people are in there with you. I was in county waiting to catch Jane, transported to prison, and a crack dealer named T-Bone would tell me stories of when he would have crack W come over late to score arc. The crack W would offer to suck his dong for a cookie, flat $50 crack rock. T-Bone had German Shepherd that he loved and would talk about constantly. T-Bone told me he would have them suck the dog's dong for it while he recorded it. The crack W apparently did this multiple times. He told me when I got out to come over and watch the videos. Yeah, I never did that. T-Bone was locked up for animal cruelty. The most disgusting thing I saw and smelled was when I was on lockup. This one inmate took a coffee bag, filled it with 3-week-old pee, puke, jizz, blood, and crap. So he gets out for his 1-hour rec and proceeds to place the open part underneath this other guy's cell door and stomps on the bag. It sprayed the most disgusting rancid concoction of bodily fluids all over this inmate. After his epic display of biological warfare, he pulled down his pants and shook his dong at the inmates he just crapped down. Sat in a drunk tank one night in my freshman year of college. I didn't do anything besides be caught guilty of underage drinking. A guy that was there when I got there gets up after an hour or so of me coming in. He goes over and sits down on the toilet that is in the same small room as the 10 of us guys that were there, right in front of the window to the officer's desk area office, and has explosive diarrhea. It's horrible. Breathing through our shirts for 2 hours. New guy comes in and is told from an experienced player that he should try to make himself throw up so that he won't be in as long. They release you when you're sober. So what's he do? Puts its drunk head into the toilet bowl, rests his face on the seat and passes out. It was a gross day. My ex-boyfriend had to do 6 months for 4 DUIs. He was an alcoholic, and he told me once he saw 18-19-year-old boy crying in a corner. He walked up to some older prisoner that he had become decent friends with and asked what was wrong. He just got his crap pushed in. Obligatory, not me but somebody I know, went to federal prison in Ontario for getting caught with a lot of drugs. Anyway, he told me that they put H addicts in with general population but they're given a small paper cup of methadone each morning at a certain time and they'd sit in chair and wait for their bodies to absorb it. What some guys would do though was shake in their chairs to try and stave the absorption, and when they'd get back to their cells later they'd induce vomiting into a sock inside of a can and use that as a filter. Then it was for sale. Yeah, doing puke is a thing in Canadian prison. I did a few years in a state prison and saw and heard a lot of brutal crazy crap, but one thing that has never left me was a story a guy told me about his murder case. He was babysitting his new girlfriend's baby, a few months old, and the baby wouldn't stop crying so he put it in a pillowcase and slammed it against the wall about 20 times. He said he knew the baby was fricked up after the first hit, but he just kept going. Said it was like a bloody pulp sack. Crap fricked me up. Also, one of the bad ones I saw was a guy get stabbed through the eye with a 10-inch knife. Dude dropped, killed him instantly and he never saw it coming. A couple people put him in a laundry cart and the COs didn't find him for like 10 hours. The guy who killed him was 19 and serving an 11-month sentence. He said he just wanted to know what it felt like to kill someone. They convicted him, federal, for capital murder and he got like 99 years. Unfortunately there is a lot of young kids who go in with small sentences and never get out. Worked at a max security mental health facility. Guy talked about how he didn't understand why he was having nightmares about boiling lobsters alive. This was 5 minutes after he talked about how he killed his ex-girlfriend, cut her up and boiled her head because she was accusing him of cheating. Oh, and how if he could just talk to her parents they would understand because she wasn't a good person. I was in administrative isolation and there was a guy across the way who kept smearing his crap on the plexiglass so the COs couldn't see inside. The guards were sick of his crap, so one night when he did it the CO on watch dared the guy to lick his own poop off the glass. He did. Christmas time in jail. May have been Christmas Eve, not sure now, many years ago. Nighttime, around 8 PM I guess. They had huts which could sleep about 20 guys each. I was in the short timers hut. A bunch of long timers started gathering around our hut, just outside the chain link fence. Massive guys, tats on arms and even fingers and all carrying a little something in their fist. The group gets up to about 12 guys, all standing around silently saying nothing, and we are getting pretty nervous. Then just as it gets dark, a couple of little possums crawl down out of one of the trees. Little Aussie sugar gliders. Here's a bunch of the biggest, baddest dudes I've ever seen standing around waiting to hand feed little possums bread and sugar. They were very gentle with them. My brother told me a story about pre-prison. When he was in jail, he bunked with a drug addict who was seemingly just dope sick as frick. He said he was moaning and groaning all night. He tried to tell the COs he needed help, but they ignored him, left him be. Then he puked all over himself and the COs still wouldn't help him. Just left him there all pukey. Then after a while, he started seizing. He had 2 seizures. COs did nothing. They thought he was faking. My brother said about an hour later, he stopped making noises. He was silent. So, he checked on him. He was grey and unresponsive. Totally slipped away. Freaking bastards let a technically innocent man die of benzo withdrawal overnight. Not a prison but GF works as psychologist for inmates. Guards withheld schizophrenic inmates meds for talking back. My friend was a former medical assistant at a local prison. She told me a pretty gross story that happened a while back. One of the inmates, a male, was getting abused from one of the COs. The CO made the inmate give him BJs, and when he tried to tell someone about it, nobody believed him. So after the end of a BJ, the inmate saved the semen in his mouth, spit it in a napkin, and had his family send out the semen to get tested, and that's how the CO was caught. It was on the news and everything, I'm pretty sure. My dad used to be a prison guard. He told me that an inmate got assaulted for ratting on someone. He said the inmate needed stitches because his butthole was ripped out. Mom was a CO at Hancock State Penitentiary in Georgia. Here are my favorite 3. 1. Nicest guy in the place asks my mom if she wants to know what he's in for. He told her that he caught his wife cheating, so he just went and sat in his recliner to calm down. She came out and wouldn't stop apologizing after he told her to leave him alone, so he literally cut her face off. 2. During a riot, inmates are double bunked into solitary confinement for a weekend. A young kid, presumably a snitch, was locked in with a significantly larger and older gangbanger notorious for non-consensual intercourse. Kid spent some time in the hospital. You don't need details. 3. Mom came upon a man who was stabbed in the skull right before his release. 6-inch shank sticking out of the top of his head. He kept calling out for his daughter. He didn't make it. I am a Canadian, however I got caught up in the US federal prison system, USP Atlanta. This place, my friends, is as nasty as it gets. A new fish came in, and after doing his obligatory time in the shoe, he got moved into my unit. When he arrived, he was asked if he had any contraband with him by some of the other brothers. He made a vital mistake by telling them no, but later opening up to his cellie that he had some weed. In prison it doesn't take long for the block to know what's going on, and so that next morning when this guy went to shower, he was jumped by a half dozen or so guys. They proceeded to fill up shampoo bottles with warm water and soap, then stuck them way up his ass in order to get the weed out. Although this would have definitely cleaned him out, it didn't force the weed out. One of the brothers then put a rubber glove on and went straight in the guy's butthole in order to get the weed out. Once they got what they were after, they proceeded to knock the guy out and hang him up to send the message. It was pretty fricked up and there was nothing anybody could do. He learned the hard way. I was in a cell for a week in Denver City Jail. My cellmate was in for the week waiting on a pickup to take him over to ICE holding. He was older, and since he was being held and transferred over an immigration issue, he was deemed low risk. It turns out he was a famous Ethiopian torturer who had killed and maimed hundreds of prisoners. He was part of the Red Terror and was not a good guy. Being in 23-hour lockdown with this guy in a cell the size of a walk-in closet was interesting to say the least. So I've never been incarcerated. However, I used to work for our local jail as a medical officer. Still to this day I'm traumatized by abscesses the size of golf balls, leaking smelly green pus, and a girl we like to refer to as Pharmacy Vag. Pharmacy Vag was found smoking amphetamines in the booking holding cells and somehow smuggled these pills into Gen Pop. She entered my clinic with her hands in her uniform and I kept hearing a rustling sound of some sort. I promptly called the acting captain in to investigate and had to witness the good old squat and cough. As Pharmacy Vag did as she was told, a rubber glove containing 20 pills, a big pipe, foils, and a lighter fell out. She had some more pills under her uniform shirt and in her shoe as well. The food was inhumane. No identifiable meat, plus everything had to be able to be eaten with a spoon because they weren't about to hand out forks and knives. Fun few days. I was sent to a women's prison about 5 years ago and there was a chick in there that was famous for getting high on M while babysitting an 8-year-old and then killed the kid. Another one that I found disturbing was a chick who threw her newborn in the trash after she went into labor at home. Also, it was heartbreaking to see mothers getting visits from their young children. Always tears from both parties because mommy still can't come home. A lot of these women were good people who just made stupid mistakes. Okay, anyone that's been to actual prison probably knows about getting their paperwork checked out. It's where you have to show other convicts some type of paperwork from court proving you're there on a legit charge and not for child molestation etc. Full stop. Well, I was younger and we were joking around with a new kid that had come in whose name was Michael Jackson when someone asked him something along the lines of, "Please tell us you're not in here for hurting kids too." And the dumb ass actually says to this up, "Yeah, but I already got beat up for it in county, so it's all square now." Sure enough, we pull his paper and it's a child abuse charge. He left on a stretcher that night. I was in jail for a few years when I was younger and saw a grown man being carried by a female CO, repeatedly stabbed in the face, while this woman screamed at the top of her lungs for them to stop. The blood that was being washed away from her face by her tears still tugs at my heart. All she wanted to do was save this man's life. It was during one of several race riots that prison had during the 5 years I was there. Another memory that really stood out for me was seeing a black dude get master locked, where you get smashed with a lock and a sock, an incredibly effective weapon, by 6 black dudes for not standing up against all the cops the previous week when all the races united against the guards. I'll never forget seeing his teeth go flying across the floor and the little rattle sound they made. Also watching a dude get stomped for crapping his pants. The guys looked like he was trying to kick field goals with dude's head. Can't believe that guy lived. When I was younger I had a bit of a bad side and ended up in the garage for a 3-year sentence, of which I only served 18 months and got out on good behavior. My cellmate at the time was wee Davey. Davey was a quiet man usually, but this day he showed me a different side to him. A side that I think hadn't been seen from the day Davey made the mistake that put him in here. Well, that day during sunlight, a guard who was spectating the tarmac had made Davey feel like a kid with the way he spoke and picked on him in front of the rest of the boys. Davey afterwards told me that he was going to turn the bastard into a teabag. I didn't think he was talking sense and thought he would calm down with time. Not Davey. Davey didn't calm down and drop it. Davey waited 2 months, and when the guard least expected it, Davey attacked the guard from behind when there were no other guards too close by. Davey waited until he crossed the yard and stabbed a rusty old screwdriver in his back. He stabbed him 23 times before he was tackled to the ground by another guard. I wonder what happened to Davey. I was bunked with a guy who also happened to be a pimp, and we got to talking and he told me the most fricked up request he's ever gotten by a customer. The guy asked if he could lay underneath a glass table and have one of his girls squat over the table and take a crap while he watched. Probably the most fricked up thing I've heard. You have been visited by the Pope, doggo. Comment 4 times and he will bless you with lots of good luck. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video, or don't. Either way, have a great day you magnificent people.